And it doesn't even sequester the carbon from one of the 4 power plants there. It's not about even sequestering the carbon. The reason they have to do this is because in order to build those other power plants, there is a huge public outcry right now. You know, I've always found, since I've been doing this, I can't say always, because I wasn't an activist or even looking at any of this until I moved to where I moved and I was directly impacted. The most active person on any of these issues is going to be the one who is most directly impacted. So now you've got global warming. Who is not going to be impacted by global warming? And so there's a lot of pressure on this industry now. We don't want you to build any more of these power plants until you can figure out how to sequester the carbon. So the reason it's so important for them, at any cost, to even create the illusion that they can manage these carbon emissions is so that they can build more power plants, so they can dig more coal, so they can, and it's like that. We've now got 2 new strip mines opened up for them to put the power plant waste into, because it's just a never-ending cycle. They can't find enough places to put it. I'm going to pass one more thing around. Have any of you guys ever seen power plant waste? Okay. Yeah, Teresa's got chunks of it. I tried to give some of it to the Ohio Power Siting Board at a hearing, and they told me they didn't want it. I said, you got it rightly. I didn't either.
Nobody wants it.
But I picked this up just by our family cemetery. They dump it on our roads. This is another thing I just want to show you so that you guys can really take home with you the fact that it doesn't matter how they burn it, because you've still got the waste issues too. And this is a huge issue right now. We're trying to put pressure on Lisa Jackson and President Obama to get the EPA to actually regulate this stuff. Right now, it's not even regulated. And so they can do pretty much whatever they want to with it. So they call it beneficial use when they dump it on our roads. Where most people get like salt and pea gravel in their trucks in the wintertime, they bring power plant waste out to our roads and dump it. And they're finding where they're testing, where they have like the sites where they put this stuff, like in the landfills, levels of arsenic that are like 200 times higher than what the EPA says is safe. And that's seeping out into the water and everything else. If they can give it away, they don't have to try and store it in a landfill. They don't have to get permits. They don't have to make it, you know, so it's less expensive. It's beneficial for them all the way around if they can do beneficial use and dump it on our roads. If they can find a way to make products out of it and sell it, that's even better, because then they're even getting a profit from it. They're putting this stuff in toothpaste. They're making drywall with it. Cinder blocks like that back there. And because they can't get rid of all of it, they're starting to put more of that in cinder blocks. And I've been told by the workers that work there that the cinder blocks are disintegrating faster, because when you add that power plant waste into that matrix, it's less and less stable. And so they're saying that the cinder blocks are falling apart more quickly now. And where they've already been doing these practices in China, they're finding that it eats through the metal pipes in people's air conditioners in their homes. So we need to think about that combination of things. We're trying to make our homes airtight for energy efficiency. Do we want to, what kind of materials do we want to put in there? Do we want to put in something that's going to poison us, or something that's livable? They make roofing shingles out of it, they make countertops, they make carpet, they make toilet bowls, they make, one of the most ludicrous things I've seen them make out of it, they made these cattle feeders that they were selling to farmers in our community to keep the hay off the ground. And when they started to fall apart in the fields, the EPA stepped in because the farmers were trying to take it to the landfill, and they said, you can't do that, that's hazardous waste. Wait a minute, it wasn't hazardous waste when they bought it, was it? You know? And so it's just, they've lined our kids' running tracks with it. They have filled and slipped roads with it and caused huge fish kills. And so one of the things I'd like to do is pass a sign-up sheet and ask you guys to just, if you would be willing, if we send you, and we can do this either Teresa, I can forward it to you, and you can forward it to people, we can look it up tonight, whatever you want to do. If you would be willing to sign a postcard or write a letter to Lisa Jackson and President Obama and say, we want you to regulate this stuff for what it is, hazardous waste. That would make a huge difference in communities like mine and across Ohio. Ohio burns more coal than any other state in the nation. That's a heck of a lot of power plant waste and coal ash. And so that would be one thing, except we need a pencil. Does anybody have that technology available? Okay. All right, so we'll pass this around, and while we're doing that, I guess there's one other thing I want to tell you about, and then I'll shut up and you can ask questions if you have any. How many of you guys have heard of fracking? Because we're talking about alternatives here. Okay. I met some people when I went up to Pennsylvania where they're already doing this, and it's deep gas directional drilling where they use chemicals under the ground to set off mini explosions and release the gas, and then use natural gas instead of coal. We're going to replace fossil fuel with fossil fuel. It's kind of crazy. But what they're finding is really high levels of things like the toluene and the benzene and arsenic in people's water where they're doing this. And one guy shared that if he, I'm not saying anything about smokers, but if he would light his cigarette with his morning cup of coffee, it would shoot flames. And if you doubt that, get online and look up the movie called Gasland. It was a movie that just won the Sundance Festival, and it was a guy who's living up there in that area where they're doing this fracking, and he went around, his family signed off the rights to go ahead and do the fracking, and then he went around and he started filming and doing interviews with people where they already were. And people's water was changing color, their animals were losing their hair, it looked like they had mange, but it was like all of them, like the horses, the cats, everything. And so, for me personally, it's a little bit scary because they're consolidating gas rights where I live to do that. We have, okay, look at this combination, and then I'll leave you alone, because you're all looking at me like I've hit you in the forehead. You're going to build multi-billion-dollar power plants, and there's already some existing. You've got underground coal mining with people working under the ground. You've got shallow gas wells, which we're rapidly losing because of the underground mining. You've got people that want to come in and do this deep gas directional drilling, which is setting off explosions under the earth. And they're doing this experimental technology where they're injecting carbon at 10,000 feet that's treated with ammonia. And because they're looking like this at each permit, there's no community that I've talked to yet that has that combination of things happening. And again, when they go to cite something experimental like that, I don't think it's any accident that they look to the community that they consider to be the most powerless. They put scrubbers on the power plants at Cheshire, and it was the first place they did it. We had 9 brothers that fought in the Revolutionary War, and my direct ancestor George settled our village, Racine. 2 of his brothers, Jacob and Philip, settled Cheshire just up the river where those other 2 power plants were. When you go into Cheshire, the first road you're going to see is Roush Lane, and our cemetery is back there. And when Canada and the New England states threatened to sue American Electric Power because of the acid rain fallout, have you guys heard of acid rain or sulfur dioxide? Okay. The first thing they did was they chopped down the smokestacks, and that kept the stuff from going up north. But everything that they were so angry about they were willing to sue got concentrated on our immediate community. And we saw things like our cemetery stones eroding. And one friend who worked, her husband worked at the power plant, and he died of multiple myeloma. And when he died, he asked Dorothy to get him a black granite headstone with yellow roses on it. And she did. And within a year, the yellow roses had been eaten off the granite. And she had to call the company up and say, can you recarve these into the granite? And what do you mean recarve it into the granite? They'd never heard of anything like that before. What'd you do to it? What'd you do to that stuff? And it now, Gallia County is the only place in the United States that Lowe's will not honor the warranties like on their outdoor fixtures and stuff, because it just eats it away. And a part of that is from the amount of acid stuff that we're being exposed to. And a part of that is not just because they chopped down the smokestacks, it's because they put on the scrubbers. And when they started doing that, the community started getting what we call plumed. And you'll get these big blue haze and these plumes that come down and go along the ground, and it's basically battery acid. It's H2SO4. The water, the H2O combines with the SO4 to make H2SO4. And people are getting burns on their faces, their eyes, their noses, nosebleeds, headaches. And so again, like what they did to try and deal with the problems of coal didn't fix it. It made it different, but it didn't fix it. It also tripled the amount of waste. And so we now have these landfills that have got so much coal waste in them that they can't even cap them off. They just terrace it off and they stack it higher and they spray grass. It looks like mountaintop removal in reverse.